Paratopic is a surreal, first-person horror game released in 2018 by Arbitrary Metric that follows multiple short story sequences across an empty, grimy, liminal set of landscapes following the mysterious content and importance of a set of VHS tapes. The game is short, best enjoyed played straight through for a runtime of about 45 minutes to an hour. We follow three playable characters: the Smuggler, the Assassin, and the Birdwatcher, and their individual involvement with an underground VHS tape trade ring. As you switch from character to character and explore each unsettling landscape scene by scene, the story, or lack thereof, begins to fall into place. Join me as we dive into the beauty that is Paratopic, piece by piece, bit by bit, tape by tape. To start things off, let's define the word paratopic before we dive into making sense, or not, of all of this. According to an essay titled From Listeners to Viewers, Space in the Iliad from the Center for Hellenic Studies through Harvard, the term paratopic space has been coined to denote space that exists next to and beyond story space. If we take the word itself and split it apart into para and topic, the meaning quite literally translates to being parallel to a topic or being parallel to the story. Wikipedia also states that it can mean to target an epitope, with an epitope in immunology being a portion of a foreign protein or antigen that is capable of stimulating an immune response, according to the Encyclopedia Britannica. So how does this relate to the content of Paratopic? The game actually mirrors its title quite well, and upon knowing the definition of the word, provides some interesting background info in regard to the tapes and their effect on the population. The main objects of interest in Paratopic are a set of VHS tapes that act almost like a type of contraband. Now, from this point forward, there's probably going to be a good chunk of spoilers, so if you'd like to play the game for yourself first, like I said, it's only 45 minutes to an hour, go play it, and then come on back here after. While we as the viewer never see what's directly on the tapes, there are three main instances where we see the effects that viewing the tapes have on a few different characters. The tapes are viewed by a neighbor, a security guard, and the assassin, the only playable character that suffers the effects of the tapes firsthand to us. The neighbor and the guard are both heavily disfigured after viewing the tapes, with the neighbor's face splitting apart into some kind of flesh flower thing, and the guard's head turning into a TV as his body splits apart and unravels. We'll talk about the effects on the assassin a little bit later. While both of these characters appear to be seriously harmed and transform into grotesque versions of themselves, they don't die. It's unclear if these effects are permanent, as it is implied that the tapes have been consumed before, either with no physical effects or non-lasting physical effects. This is shown through the neighbor's dialogue. For context, the neighbor is a woman that lives in the smuggler's apartment complex who seems to have an addiction to these tapes, insistently begging the smuggler for more tapes, saying, quote-unquote, "You've always been good to me before, come on, I'm starving," and asking for the juicy one, whatever that means. This also implies that there might be different kinds of tapes that have different effects. This is supported by differences in how the effects of viewing the tapes are manifested, though the effects seem to be anomalous regardless. So now we're going to go through each character that you play as in the game. The goal of the smuggler is, well, to smuggle the tapes somewhere. Where exactly is unclear, though in his sequences we're seen going on long, drawn-out car rides, stopping only at a gas station in the middle of nowhere, where we learn about electric rocks, and the world's largest ball of twine. That's not actually twine. That showed up out of nowhere, I guess. As you drive across the countryside, the object on the seat next to you switches from a revolver to a briefcase of tapes back and forth, possibly implying that, in that very moment, the assassin is also driving across the border, headed to the exact same destination as you. After all, the game does open up with both the assassin and the smuggler being assigned jobs from their respective employers at the same time, in the same diner. The smuggler stores these tapes in his apartment before hitting the road, with his neighbor letting him know that she witnessed a group of men breaking into his apartment. Now, the group of men that broke into his apartment was actually just his employer leaving more tapes behind for him to smuggle. She then proceeds to beg for a tape. We ask her if she can just use the one that we recorded over previously, and she states that she can't because it's all used up. It's static now. The smuggler's employer claims that he put a few extra ones in the stock of tapes given to him and talks about giving the dog some scraps, implying that the neighbor is meant to be bribed with the tapes. The apartment is full of them, and boxes seem to be filled with some kind of liquefied, fleshy material. As the smuggler travels across the countryside, a massive, dark, inhuman entity seems to be following him, hovering over his car as he takes breaks at the gas station. The smuggler is eventually stopped and caught by a security guard somewhere along his journey and is interrogated about possessing undeclared videotapes. The guard watches one of these tapes and exits the room, severely disfigured, with text on his TV screen head stating, "Be seeing you, friendo." The goal of the assassin is to cover up that these tapes exist in the first place and retrieve them for her employer, as well as take out the man that seems to be a higher up in the operation that's distributing them. She's instructed to drive the tapes across the border once they are received, similar to the smuggler. The assassin is characterized to be someone who knows what she's doing. This isn't her first rodeo, and it will not be her last. Alone in the diner, the assassin kicks open the door to the back room, shooting the man who is sitting back there, watching tapes on a small TV. The room is littered with the tapes and has a few briefcases similar to the one that the smuggler has in the car with him around the corner. The assassin proceeds to put one of the tapes into the TV and watch it, the screen filling with nothing but static. Remember when I said we would get back to this later? The tape that's viewed actually doesn't disfigure the assassin at all. Instead, it causes reality to rewind back to the point of her shooting the man in the back room every time a tape is viewed. If we remember back to what the smuggler's neighbor said before about her tape being all used up and just being static now, then it's implied that the tapes you're trying to view have nothing more to them, and no matter which one you pick up, they're all static. So they've all been seen, over and over and over. Later, the assassin makes her way through the state park armed with a revolver. As we make our way through the woods, we walk up to an area full of mangled metallic structures and shipping crates, and eventually a radio tower with various inactive security cameras around. It is here where we find that a horrific crime has been committed, as we stand before a severely disfigured corpse. We call 911 to make a report, hanging up when the operator asks for our name. As for the birdwatcher, she's actually not involved with the tapes at all. She doesn't seek to consume nor destroy them, but rather stumbles into the effects of them unintentionally. The birdwatcher's only goal is to enjoy nature and photograph birds, but somehow gets roped into the mystery and the horror surrounding these tapes regardless, by seeing something she should not have. Playing as the birdwatcher, we make our way through the state park, photographing birds and enjoying the day. As she saunters through the forest, she happens upon a massive dome-like structure in the distance, a windmill, a large underground bunker filled with various TVs, which we'll discuss in further detail in a little bit, and the radio tower. The security cameras are active here. A large, black, monstrous being ahead warps and distorts the camera when you try to get a better look at it. It's likely the same one that's been following the smuggler. The being then teleports behind the birdwatcher and kills them. In the future, the assassin stumbles across her body, skinless, headless, and still moving, wrapped around a pole. The assassin takes her camera, and the game ends with the 911 report. The birdwatcher is an innocent bystander in the events that unfold in Paratopic. So what's the deal with these tapes? Where did they come from? Why are they important? In the world of Paratopic, it is implied that a mysterious power company has some involvement with these tapes, likely being the organization that smuggles, makes, and/or sells them. Their logo is plastered onto the board in the back room of the diner and near the area where the birdwatcher ultimately meets her demise. The symbol also seems to be littered across the game on briefcases, shipping containers, underground. When exploring the state park as the birdwatcher, we stumble upon what seems to be the remnants of the power company's industry, finding ourselves in an underground bunker where a video plays on multiple TV screens, talking about finding alternative energy sources. The man in the video goes on to address a group of people, likely employees, and the sacrifices that they make for the sake of a better future. It's likely that this company, which once employed a significant portion of the population, went under after their current form of energetic source went defunct for some reason or another, which is why the environments in Paratopic seem to be crumbling and underdeveloped. This is just my own personal speculation, but I like to think that the company decided to turn to nefarious means in an effort to save their company, leading to the creation and distribution of the tapes. But does that mean the usage of the tapes is a type of dirty energy source that harms those that view them? Or are the anomalous effects of viewing these tapes the energy source themselves? Let's try to break it down. I'd like to visit the definition of the word paratopic that we mentioned before, specifically in the immunology context, with paratopic meaning to target an epitope, which, as a reminder, is a portion of a foreign protein that is capable of stimulating an immune response. In a world full of electronic nightmares, paratopic expertly intertwines the organic in this way. The tapes can refer to the foreign protein, and their effects could be the immune response, likening the tapes to something like a drug, with the high being a sickness. If you remember back to when we were talking about the power company and their search for an alternative energy source, I think it's possible that through the VHS tapes, they attempted to create some kind of biological energy that requires the human consumption of the digital. The area in the woods with the cameras is referred to as Meatworks by the assassin. This could be a nickname given to this particular facility, or its actual name. Either way, I think that could imply that this may be an area where energy is either created or harvested in that organic matter that we've seen and talked about. The effects of the tapes can enter your body and literally change your biological makeup. We later find out, however, that the power company has supposedly shut down according to the gas station clerk. And a while ago, too. If the power company doesn't exist anymore, I guess it's also a possibility that the tapes were created to originally be an alternative energy source and may have grown out of hand with the closure of the company. Then what about the mysterious figure? The one that haunts the smuggler at the gas station and the one that kills the birdwatcher. I like to think the figure is a being born from the residual energy of the media consumption possibly used as a power source through the company. When the assassin enters the property later on, the cameras in the area are turned off as well, leading me to believe that she's directly involved with, or was hired by, the power company, which would also explain why she's the only playable character in the game not plagued by this dark figure. It's implied that she has been here before as well. The game opens up with the assassin being assigned a job while sitting at a table in the diner. With her is the camera from the birdwatcher that she picks up upon finding her body in the woods. This would mean that that event took place before she was assigned the job in the diner, implying that she was headed to the plant in the woods not for her assigned job, but for some other unstated reason. It is likely, though, that this means she had just done this job before or had another target from the past that she was on her way to assassinate. So yeah, this is a lot of info, and I'm probably just dumping at this point, so I'll sum this up in some bullet points as best I can. The power company went under after running out of whatever they were using as a power source. They turned to the creation and distribution of these VHS tapes, doing something to them that made them addicting, so they'll never run out of it as a source. The tapes then act as a vessel and a drug. Despite this, the power company still went under, but the existence and trade of the tapes remain. The VHS tapes disfigure and or change the reality of others. It's possible that these effects were intended to create the energy source. In the middle of the woods is quote-unquote Meatworks, a plant that either creates or harvests this energy, or both. The entity we see throughout the game is likely created from the collected residual energy of the VHS tapes. It's possible it was created during the initial production of the tapes intentionally or unintentionally, however. The entity seems to be protecting the secrets of how this energy is created and harvested forcefully, but it also could just live there. The assassin seems to work for the power company, hence why they're the only one not in some kind of danger in the game. This is the most structured sense I can make out of the game, but this is all just basically theories and speculation on my part. I will say, symbolically, there is a pretty heavy emphasis on the effects of digital media consumption on people. The tapes are seen as dangerous, but also seem to run everything in the world of Paratopic. This can be a commentary on the dangers of the digital and its threats towards the off-screen world. The birdwatcher, for example, is spending time in nature with no involvement to the tapes, with her only digital connection being the use of her camera. No matter what, though, she dies, being taken by the direct effects of the digital consumption regardless. I think showing various characters be affected in such a grotesque manner by the VHS tapes makes it a pretty direct statement, honestly, where the digital world is a danger that is running our lives and harming us, but we just cannot stop. Going back to the original definitions of the word paratopic again, this time focusing on the root words themselves, this game truly embodies something that is parallel to a story. We, as the player, are right next to something that is so close to making sense. Something that is just about a concrete storyline, but not quite. We are right besides that. We are witnessing a happening. The beauty of Paratopic as a game is that I can sit here and come up with a billion theories and microanalyze the meanings of every aspect of the game, but none of it actually matters. The best part of the game is how it makes you feel. Paratopic evokes such a strange and specific emotional response that is incredibly difficult to pinpoint, and I think that there is so much beauty in that. To simply sit with the liminal and let the surreal be surreal just for the sake of it is an art on its own. Paratopic seeks to target you, the player, and forces you to think about your own media consumption and how it affects your life and the people around you, as well as yourself, maybe making you think about the digital age in a way you haven't before. The ending of the game is ambiguous, and the sequence of events that take place are completely out of order and difficult to piece together. So maybe they shouldn't be pieced together. Maybe we're really just meant to sit with this experience and to just be a part of this world that has been created for us to explore. To accept the events that take place as a peculiar happening with a background you may never understand and context you may never uncover. That's alright. With beautifully desolate and grimy environments and bizarre and indecipherable conversations, you cannot help but to feel small and lost when playing Paratopic. And yet, you are still drawn to move forward, to chase and uncover feelings of unease that grow as things get more and more perplexing. The long and drawn-out sequences in which you are driving far, far away build impatience and leave you with a sense of anxiety. You have somewhere to be, and it's really important, but you don't really know why. The claustrophobia of the rundown apartment complex full of smoke can suffocate you, knowing that somehow, in some way, you have ended up here for a reason. The gas station in the middle of nowhere, being a threshold between two worlds and truly defining liminality, makes you feel simultaneously comforted by the familiarity and confused by it, with a low level of anxiety humming away inside you, quietly whispering, "Something is wrong, but I know I need to be here." Overall, the way this game creates environments and situations to pull unnameable emotions out of you is amazing. Whether you're the kind of person who likes to investigate and pin down a narrative, or just settle into the strange and uncomfortable, you should probably play Paratopic. To experience the absolute absurdity of Paratopic is to experience feelings that you cannot otherwise access if everything were to make sense. The confusion is beautiful, and the surrealism is comforting. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your night, and I'll be seeing you, friendo.